Hi everyone, so happy to be here again with you to deliver this webinar. This will be the second webinar for Accolade Business Academy. Now, if you were in the last month's webinar, I have to apologize. We had some technical issues that we weren't able to resolve. As a result, some of you may be experiencing some audio problems and the recording is not available either. But what I've decided from this point onward is to use Facebook Live and YouTube Live as a platform to deliver this webinar. So if you've successfully connected to last month's webinar, this probably going to be some repeat to a lot of it. But in today's webinar, I'd like to talk first and foremost, obviously, about the new site, but not just that. I also like to give you a little bit of tips of how to be a successful salesperson, as the title suggests. So quickly about me, my name is Emmanuel, and some of you would have known me as the owner and founder of Accolade Coaching. Slide's not working. Which I started in 2012. And gathering from those years of experience coaching clients from various backgrounds, I decided to put these experiences combined with proven research materials into an e-learning site, which you see before you right now. So as I said, in today's webinar, I will talk mostly about the on-target sales success system, which is the first course to be published in Accolade Business Academy. But not just about that. I want you to have some takeaways and grasp the idea of what really makes an effective salesperson. And understand, going from that point of view, why I decided to put together the course that you see here before you right now. So my hope is, even that if you decided that at the end of this webinar that the course is not for you, you would know what you need to do to become an effective salesperson. But obviously, if it was that easy, I would not need to come up with such an extensive course like this. Now, the fact is, people don't grow into a person that like to be in a single webinar. It takes regular practice, guidance, and support to help you become the person that you want to be. And I will show you why I'm so confident that my whole course system will help you to get there at the fraction of the cost of face-to-face training. Now, I gotta tell you, the thing that makes us Accolade Business Academy different are also the very things that maybe make our course appeal to a number of people, but not so much to the rest. So you'd be the judge. Throughout this webinar, keep an ear out of whether this course is for you or not, and also for some, also keep an ear out for some special offer at the end of the webinar. But before we dig deeper into what is the OTS3 system, which is the abbreviated for the on-target sales success system, I want to deal with what I think is the biggest obstacle to success for many salespeople, which is why some people are exactly the opposite of being effective, and that is a perception. Now, perception defines practically everything that we do in life. How we see ourselves, our lives, and so on, determine what we find acceptable or not. If you deem a certain food as junk and damaging to your body, well, you're not likely to consume that food. But at the same time, different people seeing the same food with the same understanding, without the same understanding, will not hesitate to consume it. As long as it's nice, it's cheap, maybe, it's good for me. Now, the same can be said about sales. What are your thoughts about sales? Is it this? Or let's make it easy. What is the first picture that comes to mind when you think about sales role? Now, some of you may think about door knockers, some may think about men in suits that talks a lot and just wouldn't shut up. Well, when I thought about sales, I think about a car salesman. Not in a good way, more often than not, negatively, and it's for a good reason too. If you've bought a car in the past before, you'll understand very well what I was talking about. I know very well some people dreaded the prospect of buying a new car. The hassle of bargaining, being misled by the salesperson. Now, for many, it's too much. Now, a few years ago, I had a car accident that left my car unrepairable, so I ended up buying a new car. Much later, I discovered that around about the same time, a friend of mine also purchased the same car with exactly the same make and model, and even the build year from a different dealer. And I paid close to $5,000 cheaper than him for the exact same car, make, and model. Now, I'm not saying that because I'm proud of getting the same car for $5,000 cheaper, but this kind of experiences can really distort your perception about sales. If we have a bad mindset about sales, no matter how justified it is, it will drive everything that we do in our business, and your business needs sales. Sales is nothing but a tool to get your product or service out there to needy customers, and you owe it to them. I'll say again, sales is nothing but a tool to get your product or service out there to needy customers, and you owe it to them. Now, half of your neighborhood might think the product, let's say the software that you built, stinks. But there's that someone out there that really needs it and willing to pay whatever you charge them to solve their problem. Now, some of you might be familiar that I started my career in IT, which is a good industry to perfect your selling skill, because IT skills are not generally regarded as an important role in a company. Most companies, not all. Yet when the IT guy quits, the bosses are the first one to panic. Anyway, back to my point. When I first started my career, I have a special skill that is not very popular. It's not big in the IT company recruitment list. It's not outdated. It's relevant, but simply put, it's not very in high demand. But yet, over time, I kept coming across people or companies that really needs my program, and when my program actually saved the day. Now, friends, you owe it to your customer to bring your product or service or solution out there for them. And when you solve one problem really well, guess what? People talks, and when people talks, words get around, and that's marketing, which is a topic for another day. My point is this: sales or selling skills get your solution across from your company walls to the customer. Now, some of you might still have the mindset from the famous phrase, if you build it, they will come. It's really old school, which basically means that you don't need to go out there and reach out for new customers. Just build your business, build your product, and people will come to buy anyway. Now, the fact couldn't be further than the truth. Now, I will tell you 4 reasons why this is the case. First, people don't naturally know what they need. Now, let's think about this. Before an automobile was invented, nobody knows they need a car. Before TV was invented, nobody knows they need a TV. And same thing can be said about typewriters, websites, telephones, and so on. So you may not have any groundbreaking invention like I mentioned before, but your product or service is good for somebody. You just have to tell them how it's perfect for them. Now, I built into this site, Accolade Business Academy, features that you will probably have not yet seen in any online training anywhere. But unless I tell you, in other words, unless I sell it to you, you would think this site is just like any other video sites. Now, even if similar product already exists, think about mobile phone. Now, who would think that people will need a mobile phones when they have a phone at home and public phone booths that are easily accessible? This goes back in the day where there was no mobile phone. Well, you may say that's not fair. There's so many benefits of having a mobile phone compared to a fixed phone. Well, I gotta say, my answer to that is, you know that because now mobile phone have become a lifestyle. But before it becomes the lifestyle that we know of now, nobody ever cares if they carry the phone with them or go find a public phone or a fixed phone somewhere to make a call. Secondly, people also don't generally know why they need your solution. Also, think about the early mobile phones. They're bulky, heavy, and batteries didn't really last very long. Now, who would want that, right? Unless someone actually go to them and sell them the value of carrying a portable phone, even if they are heavy and bulky and the batteries didn't last long. Now, this comes down to establishing your value propositions, which was its own topic in one of the course modules. Value is different from people to people. So let's go back to our early mobile phone era. Stay-home moms may not have much value of having a phone that can carry with them on day to day. Butchers, school teachers, mechanics won't see the value in them as well. But you know who needs them? Businessmen, executives, those who are constantly in contact with people. They will find immense value in having such an instrument with them, and they're willing to pay top price too. Now, value is as much about finding the right customer as well as telling them the reason they need the product in the first place. Now, thirdly, people don't know how your product can help them get what they need. So then, some people would know what they need and why they need them, but they don't necessarily see how your solution can help get them what they need. So let's go back once again to our mobile phone analogy. In this context, people would know that they need a mobile phone that they can carry around. By now, they also know that why they need it. Keep in touch with family, easily call someone on the road, and so on. But why do they need the phone that you sell? Let's have a look at Apple. Heard of Apple? That big giant technology company that everybody hates or love, depends on what phones you use right now. Now, Apple intrigued me because during the time Apple launched iPhone, people relate a good mobile phone with that is easy to use. Or let me put it another way, easy to use with buttons. Well, now you kind of argue that iPhone is user-friendly, but back then, compared to Nokia, my favorite phone at the time, iPhone was extremely hard to use. Most people back then was not used to having a physical touch phone than a screen touch phone. It's completely different. It's a completely different skill to use that. But then Apple really made a big deal out of its launch. Now we can sit here and argue whether they did the right thing at the start or not, but the outcome is clear. People who naturally hate touchscreen phones, like me, made the switch from the kind of Nokia, BlackBerry, and so on, to iPhone. Now, in that regard, right or wrong, whether you like companies like Samsung, Apple, Orange, Melon, Watermelon, whatever, they have been successful in selling the idea of why they need their phones, compared to other popular brands in the market at that time. And the rest, of course, is history. iPhone completely demolished some of the market share owned by popular mobile phone products at the time. Now, next, let's talk about competition. Just because you have a good product doesn't mean that people will buy them. There are competitors that may offer the same product with better value, or sometimes different product that serves as a better alternative in terms of price, usability, and so on. Now, still with me on the mobile phone thing? Remember Google Android, that thing that Apple hates or love? No, Apple hates. Again, I don't want to argue which brand is the best and which brand has a better share of the mobile phone market. But one thing I tell you now, if they are big, it's because they are really good at selling their product, at selling to people why their product is the best. Most importantly, why their product is the best compared to the other players for your specific needs. By the way, this is probably not very related. I noticed that a long time ago that whether you have an Android phone or an iPhone, whether you use Android or iPhone, I concluded that your first smartphone tends to be your favorite phones. Now, my first smartphone was iPhone, and I can tell you 1,000 different things I like about iPhone and what I dislike about Android phones. But guess what? So does Android users. They can preach to me for an hour or more what they like about Android and dislike about iPhone. So I discover although they both are considered smartphones, each of them managed to capture a different market segment with their products. Now this is called the unique selling proposition, or USP for short. Now, for those who are new to sales role, USP is not reserved for technology companies. In fact, all of you, particularly if you own a business, not watching this only to advance your career, you need to have a USP. All businesses need to first and foremost work on their uniqueness. Now, let me tell you a short story. A while ago, I shared the stage with a much older gentleman in a business public speaking gig in Melbourne, as I normally do from time to time. Now, one of the point of my discussion was being unique and how important it is for all businesses to uniquely identify themselves. Soon after, during the Q&A session, this gentleman corrected me in front of a large audience, and well, not large, like thousands large, but quite a bit, a significant number. Now, he said he disagreed with me making the case of being unique. Instead, being better is what all businesses need to do. Now, let me get off for a bit. No matter how smart you are, or how much better you think you are than the other person, especially older person, you need to make respect your top priority. Now, I will tell you in a minute why this person is very wrong, but I tell you, I made a conscious decision not to disprove this man, whom I have so highly respect for, in front of the audiences, despite the fact that he does it for me. He does it to me. He did it to me. But here, let me tell you why he's wrong. Now, obviously, all businesses wants to be better than their competitors, and I've helped a few in the past too. But let's go over some of the make better scenarios you can think of. For example, if you have a restaurant, what's doing it better looks like? Well, maybe use higher quality ingredients, maybe use silver utensils instead of aluminium, maybe better lighting, bigger spacing between seats, better chairs and tables. Now, this usually comes down to higher costs and doesn't always translate to more customers. What else? Well, I was in IT. What is doing it better in IT looks like? Well, let's give 24-hour support instead of restricting it to business hours. Or maybe better technology to deliver results. Say, instead of using open source software, let's use proprietary software that have better performance. You see where I'm going with this? The notion of doing it better usually consists of taking on the same concept, like what other people are doing in the industry, such as restaurants, IT, and so on, and adding something to it and do more than the rest of the industry. Now, this usually, though, I'm generalizing here, translate to higher costs. And if there is no increase in demand, what do businesses normally do? They reduce price to undercut the competition. And what's generally happen when your costs increase and make only a small profit margin? Sooner or later, you will lose your business. And this is why I put my money on being unique rather than making it better than the competition. You see, say a restaurant. If you think about the restaurants that you kept on coming back, you probably went there because they make something like no other restaurant does. That might be a steak restaurant, a Chinese food restaurant, or probably a really twisted version between European stick dish eaten with Chinese plain rice or something, or whatever kind of confusing fusion dish looks like for you, for those of you who likes fusion. Now, the point is, being unique always wins. Now, people will always try to copy and imitate what you're doing, so eventually your uniqueness at one point in time will no longer become a uniqueness. But the point is, people are more compelled and willing to pay more for something that's unique rather than something that is better. Now, we discuss quite extensively about being unique in our course, but if you want to read a book, Blue Ocean Strategy is quite a comprehensive book on creating your unique selling proposition. And if you're really curious about finding new uncontested market space for your business, the coaching arm of Accolade Business Academy, which is Accolade Coaching, which is what I've started in 2012, is one of a few businesses in Australia that is an accredited affiliate of Blue Ocean Strategy Australia, which basically means I'm authorized by Blue Ocean Strategy Australia to deliver coaching engagement using the Blue Ocean Strategy framework. One note though, I know it's much easier doing something better than something that is unique, which is why many people prefer to do things better than create something out of thin air, and that is very much desired by the market, by the way, and which the market is willing to pay more. So while being unique will go a long way, it's also for many people is a long road to go. Many people, especially those who didn't grow up with entrepreneurial background, will have no clue on how to take this road. But trust me, the end is worth it. So back to the presentation. By now, I hope I've laid down the foundation why selling skills are important for your business. Your business would not survive without it. Now, at this point, you may be thinking, wow, that's a tall order for what you expect me to do in my business. I'm just a small business with only 3 staffs, well, my wife and 2 kids. Well, not really. What you need is a system. So let's lay the foundation of what makes an effective salesperson. Now, I myself didn't originally come from a sales background, which is why when I started my business, I have to learn all these things the hard way. That, combined with the experience from the client I served over the years, it really comes down to 4 basic components that I put together in a course which I named the On-Target Sales Success System. Now, the On-Target Sales Success System is best described using the metaphor of archery, which you will see being mentioned from lesson to lesson throughout the course. And it's also how the course is brought together. So, what do you have in an archery sport? Obviously, no person is called an archer without having a bow and an arrow or arrows. But I won't talk about the arrow for now. We'll just focus on the bow. The bow is the frame that the archer uses to propel the arrow into the target. If the bow is weak, or imagine if it breaks easily, then the archer will have nothing to propel the arrow into the target. If you like, you won't call yourself an archer unless you have a working bow and a string, of course. And this is exactly how it works in sales. The bow, or the frame, if you like, talks about you as a salesperson. You cannot call yourself an effective salesperson if you have a broken mindset about sales. Generally, a pessimist rather than an optimist. Or, and this is quite a big topic in itself, if you can't handle rejection. Now, whatever makes the you in sales will determine what kind of a salesperson you are and eventually what kind of a business person you are. Getting your perception right is very crucial in sales. Getting to know yourself is very important. Knowing how to handle rejection, how to get out of a slump if you have any, if you've been to any, is crucial in you developing into an effective salesperson. Now, by the way, the notion of becoming an effective salesperson is not like an on-off button. There is no switch to flip and decide at one point that you are an effective salesperson, or even a business person if you are in business. Rather, I'd like you to see yourself and the whole notion about the salesperson as a journey. Even I'm still in a journey. If you're alive today, you're in a journey. The only people that have reached the end of their journey are dead people. If you're alive, and I assume by watching this you are, then you are in a journey. At some point in your sales journey, you will be effective. At other times, you are somewhat effective. And at other time, you're not effective at all. But let me tell you, those experiences don't define you. They don't define who you are. Which is why I have to say this to you. You need to see this whole thing about being an effective salesperson as a journey, not a definition of life. So as we go through this webinar and in discussion about the course, don't think that you must reach that level of mastery. You will be overwhelmed before you even start. Again, it's a journey. Now, what do they call it with the monks, the Kung Fu monks, the Zen level or something? Now, that may work in movies or in some religion, but in real life, all these things are a journey. All these things is a journey. Sometimes you're on the high, sometimes you're on the low, and not being very effective at all. Now, next one up is the bowstring. Now, the bowstring is as important as the bow itself. No bow and no string, no one is an archer. But with a bow and its string and the arrows, people can fight in a war. The bowstring is one that makes this course unique in its own way. Now, many salespeople are oblivious to the fact that it's the conversation that makes the big difference in a sales process. If you see out there, especially this information age, a lot of focus in sales are placed on lead generation, but conversations are what close the sales. You see, the problem that plagues the sales industry is that salespeople often treat prospect just like a number. Now, of course, they don't necessarily say this, but have you noticed that many salespeople have a take it or leave it mentality? The moment the sales become difficult, they become hostile and couldn't wait to get you out of their hair. Now, some of you may say, but hang on, I have a deadline. I have a number of leads I need to go through in a day, a week, or a month. I can't be bothered to be nice with people. Well, of course, I know that you know how to be nice with people, with prospect. But what really makes the difference is once the sales getting difficult. Now, I dedicate the entire module to discuss the conversation that needs to take place to solve this issue. But if you forget everything in this webinar, remember this. Sales is all about relationship. If you don't value the relationship and just working on your numbers, you will see your sales suffer. Now, I'm not saying that numbers are not important. We will discuss about numbers, reporting, and all other metrics a bit later, which is part of the course anyway. But relationship is what most important. Now, this is not something that's easy to master. How many times in your own sales career that once the prospect expressed some objection, you would just walk away and never be heard by the prospect again? Now, how about imagining the scenario? You spend a significant amount of time working on a deal for a project with a prospect. In all those times, the prospect has been very cooperative, easy to deal with, never miss your call, and even give you a constant feedback about the proposal you wrote. And then suddenly, with a phone call, he said the entire project has been cancelled. Now, this is something that you've worked on for so long. If you've been in this situation like me before, to say that it hurts is an understatement. And the last thing you want is to talk to the guy again. Hence, most people after this kind of experience was never heard again by the salesperson. Well, in this course, I will teach you how to get to the root of the problem and possibly keeps the deal alive, even maybe with different terms. But that's completely different from having to cancel the deal in the first place. Now, your first course of action after such incident should be to sit down with the prospect and discuss the matter further. Are they suddenly having a budget problem? Maybe you can adjust the payment terms to be more favorable for the prospect. Are they undergoing a sudden corporate restructuring that the leadership of the company cannot go ahead with some of the projects they are working on right now? Now, all that being said, you cannot become a successful salesperson if you only see your prospect as numbers. Building relationships takes time, persistence, and patience. Although, I gotta say, the other side of the coin is, while you need to know how to build relationship and how to talk with your prospect, it's just as important, or perhaps more important, knowing where to find and who is your prospect. Which brings us to the target part of the metaphor. Now, you want to be a successful archer. Learn how to identify the right target. So let's move away from sports for a while and think about archer as hunter. A hunter might find rabbits or deer or whatever animal that people usually hunt using bows and arrows in the past to go and hunt for them. I believe it's unlikely hunter would hunt a hippo or a rhino using bows and arrows. The tools just don't match the target. So likewise, in sales, a good salesperson knows how to identify the right prospect and different ways to target them. Now, just like ancient hunters wouldn't approach a rabbit or a deer the same way, different sales prospect also requires a different approach. For example, you would not treat or approach someone who is not a decision maker the same as the one who is a decision maker. How do you approach someone who is highly emotional and buy on impulse compared to someone who is analytical like me, who needs to know the details before making a decision? Now, by the way, one of the things I like to challenge my client is to role play with me as the prospect and them as the one selling the product or service. Now, if you can appeal to my brain, I'm confident you can be a successful seller, and I will tell you why. No magic, no nothing. But thanks to the growth of technology, information is much easier to come by these days. While a lot of training has been dedicated to target a more emotional buyers with impulse buying habit, the effectiveness of this approach is significantly reduced nowadays, especially in the Western world. For once, people now get into the habit of educating themselves before making a purchase. Now, remember the car I bought for almost $5,000 cheapest? That's just doing a simple research online. Granted, it takes time, but most people nowadays have realized the benefit of a little bit of research to save a lot of future pains. Now, that's the analytical brain speaking. Secondly, there are well-established written policies in stores all over the world, online or offline. You don't like this stuff? Buy it anyway, and you can always return it back to the store anytime. Now, in other words, people these days have more ways to change their minds when they're buying on an impulse, rather than how it was before. So even if you're successful, if you've been successful targeting their emotion in the first place, there is still a big chance that the purchase is not final. And especially in places like Australia, stores like IKEA, I think give you a one year time to return the product that you don't like. Now, I'm not saying impulse buying is gone completely. There's still more people buying on impulse than as opposed to a result of well thought action. But it's really worth knowing that what kind of prospect you have with you. Now, pay attention to this, especially in a technical or highly saturated industry where buyers are spoiled for choice, like IT or accounting, for example. It's worth to tailor your sales approach to appeal to the analytical crowd. Okay, so by now we have familiarized ourselves with the bow, the bowstring, and the target, all which is important and enough to make you a decent archer. But to be really good at the archery or any sports for that matter, you still need the one thing that separates you from the amateur wannabe athletes like me, which is the scores. No sports can be performed professionally without taking into account scoring. Only by keeping track of the scores from their daily practice to live sporting events can an athlete know how they are doing in sports. So likewise, salesperson also needs to take into account their numbers. And this is why I said before when I was talking about relationship that numbers are also important, but relationship is most important. There are two very important metrics that you need to pay attention to. Well, there are more than two, but for the sake of time, let's narrow it down to two. First is your revenue model, and next is your sales win-loss ratio. Now, I won't discuss your revenue models in this webinar, but this is something that's traditionally called the sales funnel. I've discussed this in length in a separate lesson in the course. By the way, all that we've discussed so far has been formatted into interactive video lessons. So if you sign up to one of our membership plan, you will have an access to all of them and not just the individual lessons. So you can look into our simple and straightforward way to do a revenue model. But what I really want to discuss now is your sales win-loss ratio, which is also its own lesson in the course. Now, pretty much sales win-loss ratio tracks your sales closing success rate by putting two numbers into the simple formula. Sales won divided by sales pursued. That's it. Simple. The question is, you should have the question that you should have after this is, then what? Well, there are three things you can do to improve these numbers. First, you work to increase your sales won rate, or the top number. Secondly, you can pursue fewer prospects or decrease the bottom number. And once you manage to constantly keep your ratio stable, increase your bottom number to improve your revenue model. Easy? Of course. We don't do the hard stuff here. Not. Anyway, let's move to the OTS3 system. So these four components made up the entire on-target sales success system. And accordingly, the course is divided into four modules. The bow, or the frame, discussed in module 1, focuses on the U in sales. You will learn about the psychology of what makes a successful salesperson, the different selling roles. I don't know if you know, but there are practically 9 different sales roles out there, and they're not typically built into a single person. earning respect, and being authentic in sales. Now, there are two very important components that must exist between you and the prospect to have a successful business relationship. Without them, your sales process will break down. So these are the two: be authentic and earn respect. Getting over the word no needs no explanation. One of the biggest challenge for most salespeople is dealing with rejection by the prospect. And I guess this is also why I want to take this training beyond coaching engagement, which is why I create this as a separate arm of the business. The biggest struggle for business and professional are often the lack of supporting community. Now, especially in a selling landscape, many organizations actually have a very competitive sales environment that doesn't really nurture growth. Now, my dream for this side is that it will grow beyond just a sales course, but also ways to support each other in a way that we can see ourselves grow as a community to become an effective salesperson. Next, we discuss how we can get out of a slump. Now, from time to time, salespeople will and do experience slump. Now, this course will teach you how to deal with it. And lastly, how to deal with limiting perception on selling success, as we have discussed very early on this webinar. Module 2 is then the backbone of the course, which discusses in length on the topics of the conversation that leads to closing the sales, which is, in the archery metaphor, is the bowstring of the bow. You see, bowstring is quite interesting. Yes, the bow is very important, but bowstring is really the next most important thing for an archer. You have to make sure it's stretched just enough so that it can give the maximum energy to propel the arrow, but not too stretched that it will break at the slightest movement. If you think about it, that's pretty much what sales conversation is. In a nutshell, if you talk too much or push too much, the prospect will be intimidated and the whole sales process will collapse. If you don't talk enough, ask enough questions about their problems and needs, the prospect will have no idea why they should buy from you and how your product or service will answer their needs. But with just the right amount of energy, you can be sure that it hits the right target. Or, more correctly, it hits the target right. And I like this metaphor because it fits perfectly with sales. You see, it's not about how far you have to pull the bowstring to hit the target right. It takes really good practice to recognize the target, the distance, the wind, the weight of the arrow, to be able to propel it to hit just the right place no matter what the conditions are. Now, practice makes perfect. Even experienced salesperson doesn't apply the same approach to every situation. They know what's the perfect conversation, tones, even handshakes to get the prospect just right in order to close the sales. And their patience too. Now, these kind of things takes time. Yeah, granted, over time, as you practice and get used to talking to different kind of prospect, it gets easier and you tend to do it more efficiently. But by no means is it quick. You know, sometimes I'm a little bit annoyed to webinars or seminars or blogs that makes everything in this world seem so instant. So many people are fooled by the things they read on the internet that they think it's the same in real life. Real life things takes time and patience. Nothing happens overnight. If something does, there's usually something else going on behind the scenes. Well, not to be overextended on this, but cryptocurrency is the latest example, but we won't go into that today. Anyway, Module 2 talks about various aspects of the bowstring. We discuss why and how people buy, how to connect with prospect, or the 7 rules, how to make a strong impression, how to qualify your prospect. You know, there's not a lot of information out there talking about how to qualify your prospect. You need to make sure your prospect does need and can buy your products too. Now, this lesson alone can save you thousands of dollars in wasted time, resources, and most importantly, heartache. Now, I've seen people who reduce their offering close to nothing just to get clients that really don't care if they deliver the product or not. Well, obviously they know how to complain, but other than that, there's no value in ensuring the business, the seller, actually deliver the solution. Not qualifying your prospect is also bad for another reason than money. If your customer doesn't place a lot of value in what you do yourselves, They won't know if you're selling something good or something extraordinary or something even groundbreaking that deserves a Nobel Prize. Yeah, so qualifying your prospect is really important. Without that, you will only be fighting in price. Then we discuss how to engage the prospects in designing solutions they will buy, how to negotiate, how to use the skills of coaching to lead prospects through the sales process, how to demonstrate value, how to turn features into benefits. Now, in short, people don't buy features, but the benefits of your products. Even if they like to ask you about the features of your products, like me, the analytical buyer, most likely they are already aware what benefits those features bring them. Next, defining your sales process, handling objections with finesse and grace, best sales closing to use, managing sales momentum. Now, how do you know if you have a good momentum with the prospect and how to take advantage of it? Dealing with prospect who won't decide. Now, this lesson is the perfect companion for the how to qualify prospect lesson. Handling price sensitivity. Mastering elevator pitch. It's actually easier than you think. How to use silent or pregnant pause, as they say. Saying nothing in such a way that you feel somebody really have to bust the baby out of the belly. Telling stories. Offering guarantee. And preparing for the sales meeting. So I just ran through some of the last few lessons of Module 2 quickly because I want to spend enough time on the best part of this webinar. And by the looks of it, we almost run out of time. So after the bow and the bowstring, we'll move into the target. There's still so much needs to be understood how to properly target your prospect. We started the module with a very special lesson on lead generation. Now, this is a long lesson and also does work as a reference so that you can come back and visit later. Then we talk about how to improve your power base, referral and relationship-based selling, cold calling do's and don'ts, getting to the top of decision maker. In Module 2, we dedicate this last module to talk about different metrics you need to keep track to be a successful person. First, your revenue model, as we discussed before, setting up goals and follow-up, sales forecasting and pipeline tracking, your sales win-loss ratio, also discussed previously, and managing your time for success. So I just went through to all the lesson in the modules extremely quickly because I want to really spend time on the juiciest part of the webinar, which is the website itself. Now, to understand how Accolade Business Academy is unique, you need to understand the context of typical e-learning courses out there. Now, let me say this. I love e-learning, and e-learning has really been a big help for me various times in the past. And let me make it clear, when I said e-learning is the kind that offers curriculum and a structured content and engagement to some level. YouTube is not an e-learning platform. Sure, YouTube offers many tutorials and educational contents, but it's nowhere close to a full-blown e-learning system. So with that in mind, what most e-learning courses do? In general, they are reading based, very few video, more readings. Many video based online courses are just simple slide presentation. Well, today's webinar is a slide presentation, but the courses that you'll see, which I will show you some glimpse, are not a slide presentation. They're not tailored for online delivery. It's reading and not teaching. Not all face-to-face trainers are built for online audience. It's a unique skills that needs a specific skill set. Now, if you think about hosts in live events and on TV, they require a different kind of skill sets. A lot are similar, yes, but the mastery of one doesn't mean the mastery on others. Now, the really good courses are just videos, and there's no tools to engage participants. Don't get me wrong, if what you need is just videos and you don't need the additional engagement or interactivity, now there's so many good ones out there that offers great content. But when I built my site, I realized what's missing is the interaction between participants, trainer, question and answers, and so on. I mean, I love e-learning, and I took e-learning courses, paid courses, not YouTube, from how to do how to shoot videos, how to edit videos, how to edit audio with all this thing, stock trading, forex trading, you name it. I spent quite a great deal on courses. I love learning, but still I miss the school experience. Now, if you go to the universities, the campus experience where you can interact with other real human teachers, have discussions, go to the library, borrow books, and so on. Well, we can't really do that yet fully online, especially not on my website. But I do think online courses need to be more than just videos. Hence the reason I set out to focus my energy not only to create high quality video courses, but also to take it a step further to create an engaging course that will help you achieve your goal faster. So, what sets us apart? Interactive video is not new, but its uses for training purposes is still limited. But one of the hardest thing creating a video training is to keep the participant engaged. Yeah, it can't be helped. Online video training can't always be fun topics like how to bake a cake, how to knit. Well, that's fun, right? But obviously, topic like sales training is something that poses a challenge to deliver online. Now, interactive video helps break down the dull nature of some of the topics that presents the highest value. One of the things that face-to-face trainer used to help keep audience engaged is by prompting them with questions that relates to the topics being discussed. And that is exactly what we're trying to do here. By breaking down the video with prompts, it helps people digest materials in smaller chunks. That's one use of the interactive video technology. Now here in this slide, I take it a step further by implementing some fun quizzes to help spice up the lesson. Now this is more than just to avoid boredom. When you link emotional experience, in this case fun quizzes, it has greater chance of being hardwired into the brain. And there are many more that I won't have time how interactive video is being used to deliver lessons more efficiently in this site. Now let's go to the next, reflection. If interactive video is probably the #1 thing that I'm excited about presenting you this course on Accolade Business Academy, the second would be the reflection segment of each lesson. Now, this is different than the quiz segment at the end of each lesson. The quiz segment is designed to test your knowledge of the lesson and mark your lesson as complete to automatically add credits towards your completion certificate. But reflection segment allows you to relate the knowledge back at the end of each lesson to every one of your individual situations. Now, this is for your direct personal benefit only. It's not going to count towards your completion certificate. Now, when I went to university many years ago, before I got married and before my 2 kids popped up, we have lectures and we have tutorial classes. Now, tutorial classes are not lectures. We simply have a list of discussion points or problems or sometimes assignments that we must complete using the knowledge we receive in the lecture class beforehand, and often have to be done in groups. Now looking back, I really value those tutorial classes because it really grants your knowledge into what's really important. Now it may not teach you any new knowledge, but when you do it right, those tutorial classes are really what makes the difference. Now same thing's applied here. Reflection segments, while it's not the lesson itself, will help you ground the knowledge into your individual situation. Now if the video is the action of putting food in the mouth when you eat, if you like, the reflection segment is when you actually chew them. Now this is what contributes towards your growth. Next, the how to practice segment. Now not all the lesson in a course have the how to practice segment, but this segment will guide you to know the exercises that you can do with your friends to put knowledge into practice. Ideally, you would put the lesson into real selling situations right away, but you don't always have that luxury. If you only have the opportunity to close a sales once in a blue moon, as they say, then applying the lesson on sales close in that situation would put you in a lot of pressure. So what can you do? Practice with your friends, colleagues, or family members. Get them to pretend they are the prospect. And this segment will show you exactly how to do it. So next, on to quizzes. Talking about quizzes, I got to talk about the completion certificate. For most of you, you may not need a completion certificate, especially if you do this to grow your own small business. But some of you might sign up under an organization, or your boss might be paying for your course. Now, this will help show to them the amount of effort you have to put in to do the course. Now, the quizzes are automatically graded. So if you don't pass a certain lesson quiz, do not throw rocks at my house. It's automatically graded, and I have no way to intervene with the results. Well, unless it's a technical glitch, of course, in which case I have to put the website offline and fix the problem. But other than that, it's an automatic grading system. Now, someone asked me before, is this an unaccredited course? The answer is a straight up no. The materials I put together is a combination of personal experience, research, and various licensed materials. It's kind of hard to get accreditation based on that. Now, furthermore, the on-target sales success system and any other course that I have in the future, my focus is strongly on relevancy rather than accreditation. Now, what I personally see as relevant, not necessarily what the accreditation body sees as well. Well, not saying anything bad about accreditation body, of course, but just making the point that often what's relevant and what's being accredited is not usually the same thing. So once you completed all quizzes, you will be able to download and print this beautiful certificate with your name on it. Obviously, your name is not John Smith. Next, on to downloadable resources. Now, downloadable resources help bring your learning experience offline as well. Whenever I did an online course that is so dense, I always get into a habit of putting them down on either a printable chart, table, or just notes, handwritten notes. Now, this helped me digest the content even more. Now, I know you can download all this on the site, but I really want to encourage you to do your own note taking. There is actually a scientific evidence that shows that physical note taking, actually helps the learning process. Now, I know some of you are restricted by time, and which is why I have prepared the downloadable resources for you to use at your convenience, and to show that I'm not lazy in creating this site. Okay, while we're on the subject, if you sign up, this will be obvious to you, the location of the files. You won't find the file under the individual lesson because because there are copyrights for these files. It must be downloaded from your dashboard. Now, every month I will do a members only webinar focusing on a different topic in the course. Now, it's not going to be like this webinar that you're watching now. This is it's a launching webinar, the second time a launching webinar, so it's quite dense and extensive. Pretty much I discuss everything about that there is about the course, the on-target sales success system, and also the site Accolade Business Academy. But in subsequent months, you will see me doing webinars discussing a specific topic in the course more extensively to expand the lesson in each course accordingly. Now, you might be asking, why would you do a monthly webinar talking about the lesson when you already have the lesson? Well, there are two problems with typical video trainings that I didn't mention earlier. It's virtually impossible to create a timeless training course that can be relevant to all situations and businesses. It is also impossible to create new course as the situation changes time after time. Well, eventually, if things changes so much, the course needs to be updated. But in general, we need time-effective and cost-effective ways to make sure the course is relevant. Regular webinar is the answer. And the other problem that often occurs in training like this is people will be asking questions. And when you sign up, you will see different ways you can ask questions, either by using our contact form or using the contact the teachers button in each lesson. Now, this is perfect for the Now, these query buttons are perfect for quick questions that require only a short answer. But more complex questions are difficult to answer using this method. Regular webinar will provide you with a way to see your questions answered in a more detailed and structured way, live. Now, let me say this. As paid members, you will have access to all the archive webinars. So even if you are unable to attend them, you can still access them through the archive page in your members area. Now, if you're not ready to become paid members, simply sign up to become a free member. You will still get access to live webinars. Now, if you're ready to sign up, but for some reason, despite everything that I have said, you think it's not worth to spend $29 or $49 a month on e-learning course, in a minute, I will give you a limited time offer that you can't refuse. Ongoing support. Now, before getting to that, one last thing that makes us stand out from other online courses on top of everything that I've just said is the ability for you as members to directly message me at any time to ask about anything. Website related or not, as long as you don't ask anything personal about my family or my kids. You see, as I said, I've signed up to a lot of paid learning courses, and it always annoys me that most of the time I have no way of contacting the trainer, or at least the organization that delivers the training, if the actual trainer is not available. This renders high quality contents over time become inferior. The challenge for us trainers often are what we said can be interpreted many different things by different people. So for me, I place a lot of value just being able to contact the trainer directly at any time. Right, before I reveal the grand finale, let me ask you, if I can tell you you'd be making 10 times as much as you are making now next year, how much dollar that you are willing to set aside in this year to get you to that day? Now, don't give me the answer, but I want you to take a closer look at that figure that you just put down for yourself and compare it to how much you think you'd be making next year. How about 100 times or 1,000 times as much? How much would you be putting down for yourself this year? And I'm not talking about a single event. Let's say if I can stretch the cost for the entire year, how much would you be willing to invest? Again, compare that to how much you are willing to put aside for your own personal growth to achieve that target. And then I want you to ask yourself this. Do you think the comparison of both figures fair? For example, if 10 times of your current income is $100,000 and you only be willing to spend $10 in your own personal growth, for argument's sake, I know you're not really saying this, but for argument's sake, then what you're saying is that you're expecting a 1,000,000% return in your investment. Okay, if you lower your expectation, say you're expecting to come up with $10,000 by only investing $10, then you're saying that you're expecting 100,000% return for your investment. Now let me tell you this, I've invested in stocks before, and back in the days, I would consider having a really good day when I get to 20% trading profit. So what's my point? My point is this. How much you're willing to invest in yourself reflects how much value you place in yourself and the expectation of outcome. If you're expecting to get $100,000 in a year time, you'd be looking to at least invest about $10,000 this year. And that's roughly what you should be looking at. Now, by this, I'm not saying that it will cost you $10,000 per year to do my course, to do the course in my site. Although, yeah, that'd be nice. But really, look what you are targeting for the next 1 or 2 years, and look at the monthly membership plan for both the professionals and the entrepreneurs. It should not be any doubt of the value of such price. Well, you can of course sign up to the free plan and still get value from attending the various webinars I do every month. But again, consider the value that you put in yourself, and your future before doing this. If that doesn't compel you to sign up, then this is my only offer. If you sign up between now and uh, wait for it, 14th of October 2018, midnight, you can use the offer code ABA Launch 18 to get first 50% off monthly membership fee, any membership plan, for as long as you remain a member. Now the discount applied for as long as you are with us, and of course as long as I don't shut down the business, God forbid. But if you cancel your membership plan, then you will not get the same discount if you sign up again in the future. But look, really, I've spent a lot of time and resources putting loads of value in the course and in the site. If at this moment you know you are in desperate need of such training and you are looking for something a bit cheaper elsewhere, then I ask you to really take a good look at what you are expecting and what you are investing. Now, someone said to me a while ago, Emmanuel, you will always pay something in life. If you don't pay for your education now, this person said, you will be paying for your education later in the future through failures, loss of income, and so on. Now, before I leave, if you forgot about everything I said in this webinar, well, apart from my point about relationship before, the other thing that you should not forget from this webinar, if you forget everything about this webinar, I want you to remember this. What and where you are willing to invest yourself in life, that's where you will see the most growth and goals achieved. And I'm not just saying about money. I'm just saying if you invest in time, where you are willing to invest your focus and attention, that's where you will see most growth and goals achieved. Because great people invest a lot in themselves and pay the price that everyone else is reluctant to pay. Anyway, we've run out of time, and my hope is this webinar will at least get you to think of what makes an effective salesperson and incite the desire from within you to become one. Now, if you're not ready to become a member, it's perfectly fine. Just sign up to the free membership plan so you can be notified of any future upcoming webinars. So, until next time, all the best for your success.